That's the lay of the land. That's how the UK media is. How is it possible that an entire industry has been able to work like this for over 2 decades without anybody saying something is wrong here? Two reasons. One involves the UK video games media, and the other the US games media. The first is performative allyship, making a public display most commonly on social media against racism and for racial equality without taking any affirmative action. Many of the staff in the UK media have gone to the best state schools or the best private schools, which have almost universally been white. They are ideologically against prejudice and will intermittently take a stand against racism by using slogans in their Twitter bios. Sometimes you will see them have the temerity to go on an indignant online assault against someone because their politics are not the same as their own, whilst working for a company that has never hired a black or brown person for over a decade. The worst thing is, it illustrates how everybody in the video games industry makes judgments on others, whether they are approved or not, whether they are good or bad, on how they tweet, the words they use on social media, not on their actions. So a person who tweets in support of BLM is regarded as heroic, even if in real life over a period of a decade they've excluded black and Asian people or said nothing about their own employer doing the same. In summer 2021, UK young black footballers, leading sportsmen in the England national team, experienced horrendous racial abuse. Many video games media reporters and so-called journalists posted tweets about racism in the UK and how disgusted they are with it, and referred to systemic racism in British society. Yet these same bastards go to work in offices where no black person has ever set foot. Games Radar editor Sam Loveridge is firmly anti-racist and posts fundraisers for causes supporting black people, yet she leads an office which, until very recently, had no racial diversity at all, and still doesn't have any black people. Then, evidently there is a disconnect by her not realising societal exclusion and othering can be the consequence of a company that has historically never hired black or Asian people. Dan Dawkins, the Games Radar content director, he regularly tweets statements against racism. He uses the word gammon. It's a metaphor equating the red colour of fair-skinned white people when they become emotional to the red colour of a piece of gammon. A word used mainly by middle-class whites to describe other whites who are small-minded and racist. However, the word is used to signal that they themselves are not like that and they do not harbour racist views. It is a shorthand to signal their non-racist virtues. Dawkins describes rural Wales as racist as hell and commenting on the lack of people of colour, yet having no self-awareness that the team he oversees, the team that he along with Sam Loveridge is directly responsible for the selecting and hiring of staff, until very recently had no people of colour and still doesn't have any black staff. So whilst making public statements of support for diversity on social media signals good intentions, when done without affirmative action, it is selfishly being used as a technique to build social media standing. The worst thing about the UK's performative allyship is that it's so harmful because it masks accountability at these media companies and of their staff and has allowed wrongdoing to persist, and it misleads others, including the US media. Something to point out is how individuals and these media companies present themselves publicly through their words online and not their actions. A further example of performative allyship in action is Eurogamer's review of Kingdom Come Deliverance. Kingdom Come Deliverance is a historical RPG set in 15th century Bohemia. It had received criticism by some in the media for not including black people in it, which the developers explained was done for historical accuracy. The reviewer Robert Purchase, who describes himself in the review as white, firmly criticised the developer for this and enlisted the help of an unidentified historian to discredit the developer's stance. He did this whilst having a complete lack of self-awareness that in 21st century Britain, in a metropolitan town, a racially diverse community, in his employer's offices, not a single black or brown person worked there. Likewise, Eurogamer editor-in-chief Ollie Welsh criticised developer David Cage for black slavery and Holocaust parallels in Detroit Become Human. Welsh was angry at Cage for covering topics which he felt, because they were contentious, shouldn't be covered. He said of Cage he doesn't have the wit or the intellect, calling him clumsy. He said he is seeking to avoid the seriousness, the intensity, the emotional and moral weight of a very real and very painful struggle without engaging with all its very real issues, without having to pick a side in the present fraught cultural moment. Anyone reading this review, the indignant accusational tone of Welsh's towards Cage would suggest he profoundly cares about the issues of racism and second-class citizens. However, Welsh, as a man who has worked for over 13 years at Eurogamer, over 9 years since he was made deputy editor, and had an influence in the decision-making process of hiring new staff, his office doesn't have any black or brown full-time staff. His words are a public display of allyship, but his words are empty and hollow. In 2017, Guardian reporter Kez MacDonald was invited by Eurogamer to write a piece about the lack of diversity of women in the industry. This would have been the time to also talk about the lack of racial diversity. It's not a competition as to who is the most disadvantaged. However, it needs to be noted that women in the video games media are better represented than blacks and Asians. This piece could have been the perfect opportunity for Kez MacDonald to highlight this, but she didn't, wherever not. Not because she's racist. She stands against it. The proof is she's tweeted against racism multiple times. The poor lack of racial diversity was just not an issue that she considered needed discussing. Nor has she done so using her platform since joining The Guardian. She is a privileged white woman. When she saw the poster for Bad Moms Christmas movie, she tweeted commenting on the lack of racial diversity with the actresses in the poster. Yet she had absolutely no self-awareness to comment on her then employer, future POC, or Eurogamer's lack of racial diversity. It's this cognitive dissonance from one's immediate world that compounds the problem of black and Asian people not being able to get jobs in the UK media industry because the staff all take a performative stance on racism that they see in the outside world, which they will criticise, but on the part of the world that they have the ability to influence, they say nothing or do nothing. The UK media's exclusion of black and Asian people has been enabled by the US games media in a conspiracy of silence. One issue endemic with the US games media is that there is a belief they should always take a personal or social stance on a controversial issue or news item, but there is a reason for a qualified journalist aspiring for balance and objectivity, because it helps avoid a well-intentioned character assassination, because sometimes these reporters make the wrong call, or even they make the right call but handle it wrong. What happened with KSI? Some of the US media endorsing the downfall of this man, who was apparently a danger because of his jokes. But the US media did not see that his takedown by Matt Lees, Eurogamer, Stephen Totilo and Microsoft was symptomatic of an industry which does not open its doors to people of colour.
In 2017, a prominent YouTube personality joked that he wants to babies. The US media said nothing about it, not that they needed to, it was just a joke. But because he is judged to hold the right views, the media gave him a green light, and it reflects double standards when an industry stays silent on the actions and words of their friends and colleagues across the industry who they feel aligned with.
White Twitter, always eager to proclaim it firmly stands against racists, one tweet at a time, oddly has been silent. Individuals in the UK media regularly post tweets in support of racial diversity. However, the US media has never questioned why the UK staff has a diversity problem. Former Kotaku editor Stephen Totilo and Bloomberg Station Trier recently sought to highlight a developer startup with 20 staff who were mostly white males because of its lack of diversity. So this underlines that they recognise diversity is important, but they have never said anything about the UK's lack of diversity. The games media actually works as a small industry, a cottage industry. If people haven't personally met any other reporters or bloggers, they know who they are. They know who these reporters are, often interacting with them online. To say that Totilo and Schreier, who've been in the industry for years, are not aware of the state of play, the lack of diversity in UK media outlets is delusional. Yet Totilo and Schreier, have they ever commented on Games Radar, or Eurogamer, or Azaro, or Microsoft UK, or Enlife, or anybody else? No. Greg Miller, who represents himself as socially conscious, is more than aware of the UK media industry. He even has a former staffer living at his property. But did he say anything about the UK media? No. Chris Plum, editor of Polygon, a website that is vocal on social issues, has he said anything about the UK? No. Kotaku reporter Ian Walker has been vocal with tweets commenting on racism. Has he said anything about the UK? No. Jeff Grubb, at VentureBeat, has publicly tweeted about the lack of opportunities in the industry, but did he say anything about the UK? No. What did they all do about this? Did they or anybody else in the US games media say or do anything about this? Did they risk a future job opportunity to speak up about this? No. Did they spend time researching this and writing to spread awareness? No. Did they produce a feature highlighting what is going on? No. Did they ask the editors why they're not hiring people of colour? No. Then they helped enable this in a conspiracy of silence. The most they can do is make a performative stand against industry racism, one pithy point at a time. The video games media is a relatively tight industry. Everybody knows everybody, or of everybody. But sometimes there is job instability. The staff need to ensure they maintain good relations with everyone and maintain a good reputation, so that if they do have to look for a job, there is a strong chance of finding another role. Some of the bloggers and reporters also feel there is a them and us culture, where publishers, developers, and the public and anybody with a different opinion are seen as them. They regard them in an adversarial light, where all the media in the industry are regarded as colleagues, as us. No one wants to ever criticize a colleague unless guilty of a heinous crime. No one will ever criticize another organization, even if it will correct misinformation.
IGN Xbox editor Ryan McCaffrey has done nothing wrong. But his tweet highlights the video games media culture where criticism of other staff and companies is strongly discouraged, even if it is merited.
Just because your industry peers have liked and commented on your tweets and share the same political outlook, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you should turn a blind eye. The US media knows about this. By their willing silence, they are complicit. An incident happened at the beginning of 2021 which has caused a reckoning. I haven't been able to get the details, but it was possibly instigated by a person upset with Gaming Network. An evaluation took place and persons in the company, perhaps HR, perhaps editorial, realised the company was at great risk of legal action from every black and Asian job applicant who had their application declined. And informal conversations were then had with senior colleagues at Future. Suddenly, there was a scramble to get people of colour on their staff, not because of their talent, not because they realised they needed to be fair and employ people even if they weren't white. No. The reason this action has been taken was to personally and professionally guard them against accusations of racism and to protect Gamer and Future from any possible legal repercussions. Christopher Dring, a gamesindustry.biz, became frightened and hired a person of colour. However, he is not based in the UK. Eurogamer launched a work experience scheme and has had so far 2 people working on a temporary basis remotely.
While this may seem like progress, it's been confirmed to me that this has been done to mask the lack of diversity at Eurogamer so they can be listed on the staff page. But the work they are given is infrequent, not full-time, and certainly not permanent.
And Future has also hired a staff member for its Game Radar team and for Tech Radar. Whilst I don't know these people, I'm sure they're all as capable as their peers. It's a shame that this was done for Machiavellian reasons, fearing an expose and a reckoning from every single black and Asian person who sent in an application but was never hired.
These hires were cynically done to preemptively block accusations of racism. However, it's too little too late, and a cultural change needs to happen.
Where are we today? The UK video games media has a problem hiring people of colour. There is an emphasis on getting the right people in, which means the people from the same background with the same ideas. All sorts of assumptions by the media, LGBTQ+ black males and heterosexual males because of racist stereotypes about toxic masculinity. There is also a social class problem which compounds the issue. There is an inability to relate to or hire Asian and black people, who in the UK are more likely to come from working class, blue-collar backgrounds. It's all very well expressing support for social equality and standing against racism in tweets and articles, but it is hollow if everyone hired comes from a homogeneous background and there is no diversity in the office. Every single person who works at these companies who share the slogan supporting racial diversity and yet says nothing about their workplace is complicit. Every person who takes a salary and says nothing is complicit. If you've been in the industry just a few months, then you can cut yourself some slack as to why you haven't done anything yet. But if you've been any longer and you've had a part in hiring staff, then you need to answer why. This is not about accusing individuals of wrongdoing for not hiring people of colour. This is about shining a spotlight on a toxic culture of Little England elitism that excludes talented people. This is about transparency. Every one of these companies should now be open. This isn't about companies failing to tick boxes. This is institutionalized racial apartheid. I don't want to label individuals as racist, but it's okay to say that Future PLC has been running for multiple decades, has made hundreds of hires of staff across all its media, past and present. So to have such poor representation of people of colour, then the company is rightly deserving of condemnation. It is utterly appalling. And it needs to answer questions. Gaming Network needs to do better too.